Well, good morning and welcome to the third week of the October month of recipes. As I think you know, this is a mixed bag, my autumn almanac of recipes. So we're no particular theme. In the first week we did a recipe from Cornwall in the UK. In the second we did French. And today's recipe really has no geographic origin. Really, other than my kitchen, and the inspiration for the recipe, which I originally did many years ago, is essentially my love of ginger. To my mind, there's almost no dish, in fact I can't think of any dish, whether sweet or savoury, which isn't improved by the addition of ginger in one form or another. So that was the idea behind what I was doing, and although there are recipes on the internet for it, I don't think they're really quite like this. So I'm going to go through the ingredients first and see if you can try and work out what it is I'm doing, and if I can remember, I'll roughly do it in the order I'm going to use them, because this, as you'll see fairly obviously, is a dessert and it's made in layers. So let's look at the ingredients. In the first layer, I've got some ginger sponge cake, and some normal sponge cake. I've also got, this may not look like it, but this is ginger wine. I'll tell you a little bit more about ginger wine when we do the first layer. I've also got some ginger marmalade and some stem ginger, which you can get in most supermarkets. So that is layer 1. Layer 2 is some frozen strawberries. You could use fresh and cook them, stew them in a pan, but frozen is completely fine for this recipe. Layer 3 is custard powder and some sugar and some milk. Layer 4 is some ginger biscuits. Layer 5 is, this is tinned caramel. You can buy it in the UK as caramel. In Spain it's dulce de leche, but it's a sweet caramel custard with some powdered ginger. And then the 6th layer is some whipping cream and some cream cheese. And then the only other thing on the top of so it's layer 7 if you like, is some glacé cherries and some stem ginger. So I think I've covered everything there. So can you guess? It's a dessert, it's made in layers, and it's full of ginger. Ginger trifle. So let's look at the equipment we need for that. So today we need a chopping board, a knife, a bowl or jug, a wooden spoon, a whisk, and a serving dish. Okay, well, so let's start with layer 1. And layer 1 of any trifle traditionally is a sponge layer. So what I've got here are pieces of plain sponge and ginger sponge, and what I've got here is some ginger marmalade, which actually is ginger and orange, and there's not so much ginger in it. So what I've got is some pieces of stem ginger here, and I'm just going to slice them up like this to small pieces. And what I'm trying to do is make it more gingery, basically, because you can't have enough ginger. If you can buy classic ginger preserve as opposed to ginger and orange, then you can leave out these ginger pieces, but they are wonderful flavour, so they're probably worth it. Okay, so they're chopped up. I'm just going to mix them around with the marmalade a little bit, and then almost like I'm making a sandwich, I'll just put a bit of ginger, get another piece of sponge like that, if you can see it from there, and then just cut them into pieces about that size, and I'm going to start layering the cake base, or the trifle base. Like this. this one fairly big so it's easier to do. Like that. Hello. And then put the other piece on top. That was my neighbour going past. And chop them into these pieces like this. Throw them all in. Doesn't really matter what they look like at this stage as long as they're well mixed up. And we're basically just trying to create a layer of fairly solid sponge. Mix them around a bit so that when people take their portion they get a bit of everything. That's pretty much perfect. Press that all down a bit. A little bit there I can still use up. Don't waste any. And there we have our sponge base. Push that down a bit. Now we get our ginger wine, and this is the only quantity thing which matters. You don't want it too, you want it enough so that the sponge is all moist, but it doesn't get too, it soaks it all up, that there's no sort of total wetness at the bottom. So I think we're about, because it soaks it up pretty well. Yeah, that's okay, that'll do. I'll save that for later. And then we get our strawberries, and again if they're big, slice them up a bit. You can use fresh strawberries. You can just put them in fresh if you want, or raspberries or orange, anything really. I just like to have them fairly soft, so if I was using fresh strawberries I'd probably stew them just for 5 minutes to soften them a little bit. Spread them nicely over so that again every spoonful gets a piece of strawberry. Last two little ones like that. So there we are, we have our base layer of sponge soaked in ginger wine with strawberries on top. Press that all down well, and that can just go away for a little while just to sit to let the ginger cake and the sponge absorb the ginger wine, while we go and quickly make a little jug of custard. Our ingredients today are 400 grams of sponge, plain or ginger or mixed, 4 tablespoons of ginger preserve, 200 to 250 milliliters of ginger wine, 200 grams of frozen or tinned strawberries or fresh, 100 grams of stem ginger, 2 tablespoons of custard powder, a tablespoon of sugar, 400 milliliters of milk, 150 grams of ginger biscuits, a 350 gram tin of caramel, 200 milliliters of whipping cream, 125 grams of cream cheese, and then a handful of crystallized ginger, cherries, fruit, nuts or whatever for decoration. Okay, so that was our first 2 layers, the sponge now infused with the ginger wine and the strawberries. Now I've got dulce de leche, or caramel basically. You could make your own with normal custard and burn the sugar, but you can buy it beautifully done both in Spain and the UK and the US and other places with ready-made cans of this beautiful caramel mix. And all I'm going to do, in accordance with the theme of the day, is add some ginger to that, so that it has a teaspoon or so of ginger. Mix that all around. And then we're just going to put that on top of the fruit and spread it around so that every area gets covered, more or less. Not to leave any gaps. That'll do nicely. And now we're going to add a layer of ginger biscuits. If you're in England, ginger nuts would be the most one I tend to use when I'm in the UK, but you can't get them quite so easily here, so I've got some nice Spanish heart-shaped ginger biscuits, and I'm just going to put a layer of those. Spread them out. We've more or less covered everything, and then we take our normal custard, traditional English packet of powdered custard made with usually Bird's instant custard, and you just add the custard powder, some sugar and milk according to directions. And now we're going to pour that over the top, again trying to spread it out so that it covers as much as possible. Push it up to the edge. There we are. That'll do nicely. And now for our cream. What I've done here is the cream you get here is not, it's whipping cream, it's fine, but it tends not to keep its firmness after a while, so it goes a bit weak and floppy. So what I do is I take some normal cream cheese, Philadelphia or any of the other brands. It's about half a pack of Philadelphia in there, and then I add the whipping cream with that. And then just whip the two together. I'm not going to dirty an electric whisk for today because this it's just not worth it. This will take me a few minutes, so I'll get on with that, and then I'll come back to you in a few minutes and we can finish our trifle. Okay, so we have our cream now, which is all whipped nicely. So I'm going to spread that over the top of the custard. Just enough. Covering it and filling the bowl very nicely. So we're pretty much there, I think. One full dish of trifle. So I did say I'd say a bit more about ginger wine. If you've never had it, it's a very traditional British, I suppose you call it a liqueur, but it's a bit like, it's in the same category as a sherry. It's about 18%, and it's a very strong ginger. We have it at Christmas, either on its own, or you can mix whiskey and ginger wine together. Is a very popular dish, but obviously also for the base of the trifle. If you can't get ginger wine, or you don't fancy it, sweet sherry is fine, or some other kind of liqueur. So it's about 18%, so you don't want anything which is 40%, but something which is 18, 20, 22%. As long as it's sweet, you can use that instead of ginger wine, but ginger wine is best. So to finish off, to make it look pretty, we're just going to decorate it with some yet more ginger. This is also stem ginger but crystallized. You can buy it in the shops. Throw all the pieces over, and then for a bit of colour we'll add some cherries as well. And there we have it, ginger trifle, ready to go. Cheers, and see you next week.
The neighbours are saying she's gone crazy again, dancing round in her garden with an invisible friend, sticking flowers in her long blonde hair, getting soaked in the rain, oblivious to the look she gets